Podsmashers of the internet, and welcome to another episode of
80-Bit Podsmash,
where gaming goes to grab a beer. We are your hosts,
Penguin and Termite,
and we are a weekly video game podcast smashing together the ideas and concepts of video games with things that you care about.
All right, yeah. What are we drinking tonight?
We are drinking one of my favorite bourbons of all time, Elijah Craig, over ice.
Some of you who may have joined us recently in the last few weeks may be like, why are they where gaming goes to grab a beer if they're not drinking beer? And well, the answer for that is really simple.
To trick you.
Yeah, exactly. It's to trick you. No, the answer to that's really simple. We are just on diets, and in both of our cases, it's more advantageous for us to drink bourbon than to drink high-calorie and very carby, bready beer. So don't worry, the diets are temporary, and once we have lost a sufficient amount of weight that both of us find we are ready to switch back over to beer, we will switch back over to drinking nice beers we can talk to you about every time we record an episode.
That's right.
This whiskey's very good, though. Very strong. Like, I took one sip and I was like,
it's very good.
That's good, yeah.
I wouldn't say it's smooth as other bourbons we've had.
It's definitely not smooth, but
it
it's
has
good.
all of the characteristics that you love and know about bourbon. And that's like notes of caramel,
Kinda smoky,
and
yeah.
a very little smoke with a little brown sugar, molasses type stuff. It's oaky. I'm not very good at describing the nuances of bourbon yet.
Yeah.
Mainly because
Sweet.
I've never...
Sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, bourbons are usually sweet. It's because they're made from more corn, 51% corn instead of, that's the criteria to make it a bourbon. But I don't know the flavor nuances of bourbon as much. And I think it's because I've never tasted multiple different types together.
Yeah.
It's always been one. Like,
Right,
we're going to
right.
have this tonight.
Like this
And-
bourbon, yeah.
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 And so I need to, at some point...
You need to go like a distillery where they specialize in a bunch of different types of bourbon. Yeah.
But if you go to a distillery, it's their bourbon. It's their mix. I need to go somewhere
You don't
that has
have like
multiple distilleries.
There's not like breweries. There's not like an equivalent.
Right.
To, like distilleries are the closest thing to breweries. But
Right. If you go to a distillery, you're going to get their vodka, their gin, maybe they got a rum, and then their bourbon. And they're like four different types of drinks entirely. So, of course, it's fine. But you need to go somewhere like a tap house that has multiple bourbons.
I see.
Where you can get like, this is Jameson Irish whiskey. This is Jack Daniel's whiskey, and then these two,
Jack Daniels,
like Bullet Rye and Bullet Bourbon.
Yeah,
you have a flight, and you can kind of walk through the differences to understand.
We'll go
the
together
nuances.
sometime.
Let's do it.
If anyone of our listeners knows of a really good tap house specializing in different liquors, then we'd be happy to.
That'd be awesome
to take recommendations. And we'll tell you where you can find us later. But in the meantime, let's start just sort of talking about what's going on in our lives and what's going on in the world of video games recently.
I was going to update us all on what do you learn.
Oh, what do you
Things
learn?
have changed.
We do what are your plans.
We have updates.
We do.
So over the last weekend, I finally platinumed Spyro 2.
Nice.
So that's done. So I got the Spyro 1, Spyro 2
great.
Platinum.
Now I can borrow them from you.
I gotta
guess
play
you have
3.
Whatever.
You just want to borrow everything. I'm just a game rental place for you.
You've got a lot of games I want to play that I also don't want to spend money on.
Yeah, and it's why I like physical copies, because I'm able to do that.
Yeah.
And I finished the story of Ni no Kuni 2, finally.
Nice.
There's the last hump where I had to grind to collect people to move into your city, so there was side quests I had to do, and that wasn't super fun, but I knocked that out in like 20 minutes, and then I was woefully underleveled for the last boss area. And there's like 4 sub-bosses before the final boss, and the final boss, of course, has like 3 forms.
Wee, JRPGs.
Yep, exactly. Totally normal of JRPGs, and I had to grind, just walk in circles and kill monsters. And there's things you can do to like get more experience bonuses and get better equipment drops. So I had slowly upgraded all of my gear and leveled up, and went back and breezed right through the last fights, just mashing the attack button. Like no strategy needed. Maybe I leveled up too much.
Yeah, maybe a little bit too much.
But I finished it.
Nope.
So I replaced all of that with Kingdom Hearts 3.
Yay!
Oh, it's so good. I'm so excited about it. It's amazing.
Kingdom Hearts 3 and Resident Evil 2 remake or whatever have been
2 strong titles for 2019.
Right? For January.
Yep. Right out the gate.
Like we've been talking for a while. The trends are changing, and good games now are like, don't discount the January release window.
Yep.
Don't be like,
a drought.
it's January, no good games are coming out. Like some surprisingly good games in the last 2 years have come out in this release window, and apparently Resident Evil 2, the remake, is being received like better than any Resident Evil game in a long time.
Yeah, some people say it's the best Resident Evil ever. I'm dying to play it.
I always thought that Resident Evil 2 was one of the best Resident Evils ever, and now if it's better, it's a game that I definitely want to play.
There was this dichotomy in the gaming community between Resident Evil 2 and 4, and then people would argue back and forth which one was better.
Right.
But this remake is pretty much unanimously across. 2 is the best. This remake is the best one.
I definitely want to pick it up, and I also want to pick up Kingdom Hearts 3. But the question, of course, always boils down to: am I willing to spend money on either game? So. Yeah, there's a lot of good. There's some pretty competitive games coming out in the next few months, and I only have a limited amount of funds available to me, given that my son's about to be born.
Yep.
Which is going to be a time when I'm going to want more games too. So we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see if I will actually have enough time to play games anyways when he's born. I probably won't, but
you'll be surprised.
So, yeah, I will be on paternity leave for like 4 weeks. So.
Yep.
All right. What am I playing? So right now I'm kind of bouncing around between a few games. The game that I am most interested in completing right now is Shadow of the Tomb Raider.
Yeah.
I've had in-laws in the house for the past few weeks, so I haven't really gotten a lot of time on the PlayStation to play Shadow of the Tomb Raider, but I'm borrowing that from Termite here because he got it for Christmas but hasn't beaten Rise yet.
Yep.
So I like it. I don't know if I'll be able to review it I don't know how much time I'll actually get to review it on this podcast, but my first impressions are I don't like it as much as Rise of the Tomb Raider.
That's what a lot of people say.
Don't like it as much as the first Tomb Raider either. So it's just kind of meh. Like I would say the biggest weakness for me right now with it is like there's not nearly enough combat. For being touted in the trailers as like crazy stealth jungle guerrilla combat warfare. I just haven't hit that point yet where I'm really like in it, like knee deep in combat and Trinity soldiers.
How far are you in?
I'm 30% of the way through the entire game.
Okay, so
like not even just the story. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I mean, don't get me wrong. I really like the challenge tombs, but I really like the challenge tombs as like a breath of fresh air, like a break almost between the action. And both of the first two games, like their main storylines were so intense.
They were.
And like, boom, 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 boom. You're just running through it that like the challenge tombs are like this nice little distraction.
Yeah.
And really, like, I feel like most of it right now is just like exploring and collecting and all this stuff that I'm like, those are fun, but it's fun in supplement to the main game. It shouldn't really be the bulk of the game. Mm-hmm. So I just want to be killing more Trinity soldiers is more or less what I'm saying. Nice. I have all these upgrades to my combat that I can don't feel like I have anything to do with. So yeah, that's the main game that I'm trying to actually progress through. In addition to that, I picked up Diablo for the Switch.
Yeah.
Diablo 3 for the Switch, and I really have been enjoying revisiting that.
Season 16.
Season 16, yep. And I've been playing that with my buddy Justin. Shout out to Justin. So just been leveling up the character. I've gotten further in Greater Rifts than I ever have before, but I guess that makes sense because the last season I played was like 5 or 6. Mm-hmm. And like just the sheer amount of power that characters are able to put out now, it's not that hard to actually get up to a point. But I'm on like Greater Rift 84 or something like that now, so I'm pretty impressed with myself. And in addition to that, of course, I've been playing Smash here and there as well. So Piranha Plant just came out the day we're recording this, and he's a blast. So that's
so far I like him. Yeah.
So I've got a lot of games I'm looking forward to picking up. A lot of them I'm getting secondhand from you, but yeah. Cool. All right. That is what are you playing? That's kind of what we'll have for updates today. Did you want to go ahead and instead of talking about the games we're playing, talk about our favorite things?
Doing this podcast is our favorite thing. Doing this podcast is our favorite thing. Favorite things.
Favorite things.
It's a fun little segment that we do that allows you guys to be inspired to think of something small in your life that brings you a little bit of joy, or something huge in your life that brings you a monumentous amount of joy.
Yeah, right. We're just going to share the things that are our favorite things in hopes that you might find your next favorite thing. If you like something that you heard on here, and if you're intrigued, go check it out. We'd be happy to hear from feedback of people who are like, oh yeah, I heard about that on this podcast. Like, yeah, awesome. I love when my recommendations get taken. So do you want to start with your favorite thing?
Sure. I kind of mentioned it already, but Kingdom Hearts 3. And the reason why it's my favorite thing is because it's awesome so far. I'm only 2 hours in, so I can't give a full review. But it's because I had pre-ordered it back in May off of Amazon when the 20% off of all pre-orders was still live.
And you forgot to cancel it.
I thought I had canceled it. I would have bet anyone a paycheck that I had canceled it until Sunday night. The game came out Tuesday. Sunday night, I was playing with my son, broke some pieces of his toy, and I was looking to try and replace it. So I fired up Amazon, and first notification was, you have this order processing. And I was like, Kingdom Hearts 3? I thought I canceled it.
Yeah.
And I also thought it was full price. So I went in and checked the order, and sure enough, it was 20% off. So it was 48 instead of 60.
Yeah, I loved my last game was 48 was Smash, I guess. And I was like, oh,
it was so awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I wasn't going to buy it originally because I was like, I'll just wait. $60 is a little much right now. But for $48, I was like, yes.
Yeah.
Which then allowed me to actually give into the hype. I don't know if you guys experienced this.
Oh, it's all over the place.
But like the hype was there. It's been there ever since. It was like 12 years in the making of hype.
Right.
Like, people bought PS3s for Kingdom Hearts 3.
Yeah.
And so as it's coming out, podcasters are talking about it. There's articles online about it. There's videos on YouTube drop in about all the history and the story and the lore and all this stuff like leading up to it. I kind of bought into the hype by getting the 1.5, 2.5 HD remake, and I wanted to play through Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2. Fizzled out in the middle of 2 and kind of lost interest and is like kind of on the back burner. And I was like, well, I know this is going to be awesome. I know I'm going to like it. But once you know you're getting it,
right,
it just takes a whole new light. And
right.
I'm like, yeah!
It's kind of
I'm going in.
Whatever the opposite of buyer's remorse is, like buyer's.
Yeah, it's like I feel like included. It's like I'm included in this
because
now.
I get to
this
be.
Is,
Yeah, no, it's a game. You have like people for listeners who either never played Kingdom Hearts or are new to gaming and aren't really familiar with Kingdom Hearts. Like this game is literally 13 years in the making.
Yeah.
Like Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2 came out pretty close together within the same console generation.
Yeah, they're both PS2 games.
They're both PS2 games, and then there was just like Kingdom Hearts 3 got caught in development hell for years.
Yep.
It would almost be worth exploring that in an entire podcast, the story of Kingdom Hearts, and now it's finally coming out. So again, it's kind of the culmination of years worth of waiting, and so it's all over Reddit. You know, whenever a new game comes out that's super popular, it always gets plastered. It's like every third post on the front page of Reddit's gaming forum or whatever is like Kingdom Hearts. It was the same with Red Dead. It was the same with Spider-Man. It was the same with like every game that I've seen come out since following Reddit. Like has been.
They all do it. Yeah,
it always happens. But again, that's just because people are hyped about it. So it's definitely got me
you don't feel like
interested.
you're included in that hype until you know you're getting it.
Yeah,
and it just elevated my excitement more. And then the game came out. I've only, like I said, I played 2 hours of it, and since then, that's all I've wanted to do is consume all the lore because the story is very complicated. It's like that's the number one meme, the number one trope, the number one joke everywhere is that Kingdom Hearts, the story is banana crazy,
right? Because you have to play like 6 different games just to get the supplementary,
they
to understand everything. Yeah, and there's a bunch of like supplementary like books and stuff like that.
It's nuts.
It's insane.
It is, and it's complicated, but it was a challenge to me to understand it. So I've spent some time like reading some articles and watching.
So
some
do you
videos.
feel like you're an expert Kingdom Hearts lore now?
I'm like 70% there.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah,
that's not bad.
Mm-hmm. I finally figured out where the major players are when Kingdom Hearts 3 started.
Gotcha.
Like, that was the main goal, was like, where is everyone and why are they there?
Right.
And I got that figured out today.
Cool. I've heard it compared to Assassin's Creed, the Assassin's Creed franchise, in that, like, with Assassin's Creed, each individual game has enough of a self-contained story, like, of what's happening in that, like, historical moment, that they're, like, easy to understand. But then there's the connected overall mythos of the, whatever you call it, it's some kind of computer program.
Animus?
The Animus, that's it. Yeah, there's the Animus and the Templars and all these, like, competing factions. That's this incredibly, like, convoluted backstory.
Yeah.
That, like, again, you have to play all of the Assassin's Creed games, of which there's, like, dozens to understand. I've heard that it's like that. It's like when you're in the different worlds, when you're in Hercules' world, or when you're in Toy Story, or when you're in Arendelle from Frozen, like, you understand kind of like why you kind of, at least you kind of understand like some of the reason why you're there, and then like each of them have their own plots, their own developments that you understand.
Yeah.
But the overall connected story of the organization and the Keyblade War and all that stuff gets kind of like lost on most of the average players. So I am, like I said, I've never played this franchise. It came out at a time when, again, I was like an edgy middle schooler, and I was like, I want to play edgy, cool, grown-up games, not this Disney crap. And then I was also a loyalist to the Final Fantasy franchise, where I was like, if it doesn't have turn-based style, it's not a real JRPG, which I'm laughing at now, because nowadays I kind of hate going back to turn-based combat. So yeah, Kingdom Hearts just came out at a bad time for me. And now as an adult, where I actually appreciate the real-time combat style, and I appreciate Disney a lot more, I would enjoy Kingdom Hearts a lot more.
It's funny.
So I want to pick it up.
If the audience wants it, I would totally be willing to walk you through every single nuance of Kingdom Hearts story. And it would help me learn, it would help you learn, and our audience, if they want it, all the way up through Kingdom Hearts 3 without spoiling anything.
Just a bonus episode.
Yeah,
I won't be there. I'm not, or maybe I'll be on there just to make sarcastic comments every once in a while.
I mean, that's the whole point. I wouldn't do it by myself.
Oh, I see. You wouldn't just talking to a mic?
Yeah, I wouldn't. No, it's not.
You see, that's the difference, because I would totally nerd out about World of Warcraft lore just in a mic. Like, for 3 hours, I'd be like, all right, we started with the Titans.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or I would do that with the Cosmere.
All right, we started with the Grandmaster.
Yeah, exactly. All right.
What's your favorite thing?
My favorite thing is I was visiting my buddy Nate, so shout out Nate. He actually helped us through some legal stuff recently.
Thank you, Nate.
Thanks, Nate. If you ever listen to this, we love you. But I went to go visit him last weekend because I'm trying to kind of visit a lot of my out-of-town friends before my son is born, and then I'll have to be like, screw you, you can come visit me, and if you do come visit me, I'm going to put you to work, make you do vacuuming or groceries or stuff like that. So anyway, so I went to go... So I went to go visit my buddy Nate, and he lives about 3 hours away in Roanoke, Virginia, and so I had a long car ride, and I didn't have any audiobooks or anything to listen to, so I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'll just spam podcasts. So I had some podcasts in my back pocket that I've been holding on to for in a situation exactly like this, and so I started listening. So I listened to 2 podcasts. One of them I'll save for favorite things at another time. The other one I will talk about as my favorite thing tonight because I just listened to the latest episode on the way here.
Oh, nice.
So the podcast is called Monster.
Okay.
And it's by it's a true crime podcast, and it's by another, like, it's a spin-off podcast of another podcast that I listened to that's actually not as good. And actually the first season of Monster was not good. So the first season they went over the Atlanta child murderer from the 70s, I think it was. Mm-hmm. So it was called Atlanta Monster, and it wasn't as good. Like, it started off strong. They were just going through the history of the Atlanta Monster. Then they started getting into this realm where they were like, was he the real killer? Was it someone else possibly? Like the person who got... And in my mind, I'm like listening the entire time.
Stuff.
Right. And in my mind, I'm listening the entire time, and I'm like, so you keep saying over and over again that, like, when they, like, got the culprit, the murders stopped. I'm like...
Yeah.
The murders stopped. Like, that's the biggest evidence towards the whole thing. Anyways, so I wasn't really blown away by the first season, but then I heard that for the second season they were doing the Zodiac Killer. The Zodiac Killer is one of my personal favorite serial killers in history, and number one reason why is because this dude taunted the police and then was never caught.
Still?
Never caught. The Zodiac Killer, we never knew who the Zodiac Killer was. He killed... I don't remember what his total confirmed kill count was, but up to where I am in the podcast, he's killed 5 people.
Oh my.
He claimed to kill upwards of 14 and was never caught. Yep.
When was this?
His first killing was in 1969, and then I think the killing stopped by like the 71. I want to say.
Scary.
Yeah, so there's actually a movie on it. Mark Ruffalo plays the detective who...
What's it called?
It's called Zodiac.
Oh.
And it was made in like 2007 or something like that. So there's a
Sounds
movie on it.
recent.
The podcast is really great, though, because it goes into a lot more detail about the Zodiac Killer. And so far, they haven't gotten any wacky conspiracy stuff. I hope that, like, on the one hand, it might be interesting if they do, but as long as they do it in like a good way where it's actually intriguing, as opposed to like, could it have been this guy? These people think so.
Yeah.
But so far, the podcast is excellent. I'm sitting here being like it's getting me into the sort of like I always like a good true crime thing every once in a while, and so it's like ticking that box for me. So
Dang.
yeah, dude, Zodiac Killer was nuts. So the killer himself is not my favorite thing, but this podcast, going into all the details, is definitely my favorite thing. Yeah. So if you are like a true crime fan out there and you don't know much about the Zodiac Killer, do yourself a favor, check out Zodiac Monster. It's on
you
Spotify.
can probably start up on season 2.
Right? Yeah, you can go right into can go right into season 2. Don't bother with Atlanta Monster.
Yeah.
So
that's cool.
Cool.
Sweet.
That's favorite things. Yay!
All right. What's next?
Next is DLC.
Downloadable content.
Downloadable content is a segment in our podcast where it's kind of like a little mini fun sub discussion where may or may not have anything to do with our main topic, but it's definitely like a fun thing. And since this week, when this episode launches, it is going to be Valentine's Day week.
Love's in the air.
Yeah, Cupid is shooting arrows, and animals are sniffing each other's butts. And
is that what they do?
I guess. Okay. When they're fond of each other, I suppose. So, yeah, like, love, everything's great. We wanted to do a fun Valentine's Day thing. Last year, we had our wives on, and we did a fun discussion about relationships.
Yeah, we did.
Today, we're going to take a different twist. We're actually still going to be talking about relationships, though, interestingly enough. Just not in the same way. And but for our DLC today, we wanted to do something fun, Valentine's Day related. So we're going to play a little game, and it's called Who sent me dis?
Who sent you what?
Who sent me dis?
Okay.
So how this works is it's going to be video game related, I promise. How it works is I'm going to come up with a gift, like a gift that you'd normally get on Valentine's Day. And Termite is going to tell me what video game character sent me that gift. So I'm going to say, oh, I got a box of chocolates. Then you're going to tell me who my secret admirer is. But it's a video game character who sent me this. And then we'll come up with some kind of analysis together as to like what does this gift look like then, since it was in the knowledge that it was sent by this secret admirer. So I said to you, for example, when I was explaining it to you, for example, if I were to say flowers, and you're to say Bowser sent you those flowers, then in lieu of that information, oh, the flowers then are piranha plants.
In light of that information.
Yes, in light of that. What did I say? In lieu? Yeah, it's the opposite. Yeah, sorry. In light of that information, the flowers are all piranha plants. Makes sense? Is the game? Is that how the game works? Yeah, listeners, they'll track on. So right. I'll come up with a gift. So a teddy bear. Who sent me this teddy bear?
Who would send you a teddy bear?
Who would send me? What video game character who secretly admires me would send me a teddy bear?
Kratos.
It's a legitimate bear. It's just like a bear with an axe buried in its head.
And it's dead already?
It's totally
covered
it's just
in
a dead
blood.
It's not even like a stuffed teddy bear. It's just like straight up a dead bear. That's exactly what it is. All right, you do one. A gift.
I am sent a wreath.
A wreath. Okay. You were sent this wreath by Bayonetta.
Oh my! This is a family-friendly podcast, so I will say, if you're not familiar with Bayonetta, please look her up. And this wreath will be wrapped in hair.
Yep, that was exactly what I was thinking.
I could unravel the hair, and I'll just leave it at that.
Okay, yeah.
And there will be lots of anatomically placed things on this wreath.
Lovely,
yeah.
Lovely wreath.
Yeah, I would love it.
Lovely subtle.
I'd be able to use it a lot.
All right, do you want to do two more each? Or not two more, one more each?
Sure.
All right, I got a box of chocolates. Who sent me this box of chocolates?
A box of chocolates came from Master Chief.
Ooh, Master Chief. I'm assuming then the Master Chief must think that I'm a Covenant spy because each one of those is a different flavor of grenade. There's a little frag grenade, a little sticky plasma grenade.
The brute grenade.
Yeah.
That like sticks spikes.
Yeah. Spikes. Yeah. Wasn't there one that like blew up and would seek? Was that Halo 4 that had like little seeker mini?
They evolved
bots?
Every iteration, and I've forgotten them.
Yeah. All right. So one more? What'd you get?
I have received a voodoo doll.
A voodoo doll.
Yep.
Okay. You received this voodoo doll from Civilization Gandhi.
Oh, well then it is a magical voodoo doll that restores my health and like makes me feel amazing. And instead of like usually when you put a needle in it, it like hurts. If you poke it, it actually feels really good in that spot.
Oh, nice.
And restores a problem. So like if my shoulder is out of whack, or if I get in a car accident, I can take this voodoo doll and smash it, and then I'm healed.
You had a very different experience with Gandhi and Civilization than the rest of us.
Yeah, I have no idea because I never played any of the Civilization games.
Oh, he's known for like reaching out to you and being like, "Hey, would you like to make peace?"
Yeah.
And then like nuking you 3 seconds later.
Oh, so tricking you.
Yeah, tricky. It's a feel-good voodoo doll.
Oh, so it's a voodoo doll that's shaped like a friend of yours, but when you injure it, hurts yourself.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there you go. With that knowledge, that's what I'm going to go
Boom,
with.
genius.
It's like, I'm going to stab this kid in the back, and then you do it, and you're like, ow, my back.
Gosh, my back.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love it.
Crap.
All right. That's DLC today. I hope you enjoyed it. We might play something like that again, because that was
a good
fun.
one.
Yeah,
it
was almost as good as Blank Blank. I like that. So, all right, who sent me this? Okay.
What?
Who sent me this?
Okay.
What do you think I said?
I don't know.
Oh, okay. I see. Oh, I see what you did there. All right. So today, in honor of Valentine's Day, we're going to talk about the relationships that mean the most to us. And by that, I mean companions in video games.
All right.
So we're going to just kind of do a topic on there's to kind of lay the framework for this topic. We, for a long time, we've actually had this on our list for a while because, we've noticed a trend for a long time. We're longtime gamers, and lots of games will like saddle you. It may not be the right word, but lots of games will either provide you with or inflict upon you some system in which like you're meant to care about something, an animal, a person, a robot, as a companion. So much of these games, some games are designed entirely around caring for your companions.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of a long-standing, I would say it's a mixture between a trope and an actual mechanic that is in games. So, I mean, really, like, you know, other than characters that are like lone rangers going out and slaughtering enemies, like you have enemies and you have companions. In some regards, we're going to be talking about NPCs, and in some regards, we're going to be talking about companions that are actually controlled by players as well. So, so it doesn't necessarily, they don't have to be NPCs, but one way or another, you're sort of meant to form a bond with a creature or a person in a game. And so we're going to kind of talk about all the different ways that you can do that and kind of what impact they have on video games. So
I tried to categorize these.
Me too.
And it was very difficult to do so. So I'm going to start with some simple ones that are just pretty easy to understand the
obvious
concept.
companions.
Yep. And I'm going to start with helpers. So
Okay.
if you've ever played Ocarina of Time, you have Navi.
Uh-huh.
She's kind of the tutorial guide that like hovers around you as you explore the world, and she like highlights targets for you and then tells you, hey, you should look at this or you should do something over here. She's also included in some of the cutscenes and the story as you play along, but very hands-off, just kind of like telling you, hey, look over here, or hey, this thing means that. And
she forms your Z target too, which I thought was a great use of like, oh, we have this new game mechanic and we want it to make sense in the story. So like logically what's happening when you Z-target is Navi runs over and floats around, so theoretically Link can see who he's aiming at.
Right, and that's a fantastic
They never repeated
marriage
that,
of game mechanic with story concept.
Yeah, they never repeated that. In fact, I specifically remember being slightly disappointed in Wind Waker that it was just an arrow over their head. There was no like logical reason why I was targeting them.
Yeah,
I remember being kind of disappointed in that. Like, where's the fairy? Like, shouldn't I have a fairy companion? So, because they did it in both Majora's Mask and Ocarina of Time. So,
and in Skyward Sword and Twilight Princess.
Did they do it in Skyward Sword? What's your?
You had V.
Was she doing anything? I thought she was your sword, though.
Yeah, but she was the voice in your sword, so she was kind of like highlighting things.
But she wasn't target. Like, I don't know. It doesn't matter.
And Midna did that too. She did
stuff. Yep, she would like boo-doo-doo.
Yeah, just kind of point. So in all of those Zelda games, that's kind of the like helper. And then I also was thinking of like Metal Gear Solid, where you have in Metal Gear Solid, Cortana from Halo, various like NPCs talking in your ear.
Yeah,
they're like the man in the chair. You know, in your mission, you're by yourself physically, but these people are talking in your ear.
Right, and they're kind of providing story details as well. Like they're giving you context for what you're doing. So Cortana's like, there's a group of Covenant that are, you know, collecting in this area. We need to, you know, disperse them, blah, blah. Like they're giving you kind of like reasons for doing what you're doing. So, you know, on your way to each and any mission, you're not just like, I'm going towards the yellow dot on my screen. Like ideally they give you some kind of context for what you're doing from a narrative point of view.
Yeah. And that's where I started to like separate to commentator / NPC.
Yeah.
And I was thinking of like Claptrap from Borderlands 1, Wheatley in Portal 2 was hilarious.
Yeah, even what's her face? GLaDOS kind of serves as that for a while, of course.
She's the antagonist.
Spoilers. Yeah, she also is the last boss, but yeah.
And then like I'll just go back into another simple idea of pets. So you have like dog meat and Fallout.
Right, really understandable. Like you're meant to bond with these. Like these are your pets. Like it's not. It's more than just like, oh, this is your fairy companion that does a little bit of functionality for you. I mean, literally, you're saying you attack this, or you go find this, or and you're kind of forming a bond. In early WoW days, you had to actually feed you found your pets, you tamed your pets, you fed your pets, you like cleaned your pets.
With the hunter class,
with the hunter, yep. Yeah. And then the warlocks, they'd summon their demons, and those were their pets. You could tell them what to do. They would come with names. So like the first time you summoned one, it would randomly generate a name. Some of them got hilarious. But yeah, they'd be. So then you're kind of meant to form a bond with them.
But they would actually have like an object, a role in the game, and they would influence the fight, or they would do something on the screen,
or they record the way your character works. Like I would even say that, like the Necromancer from Diablo 2 and Diablo 3, the Witch Doctor, like these characters that like pets were the way they do, like the way they interacted with enemies was through pets. So
pets can also be categorized as the super cosmetic thing that does nothing but follow you around.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, you can have the cosmetic pets, the whatever, I don't even remember what they called. But then later in WoW, they had pet battles that was basically Pokemon inside of World of Warcraft. Yeah, you'd fight the pets and level them up and give them abilities.
Yeah.
Another, I think, a good example like that I think would qualify would be Cappy from Mario Odyssey. It's a whole separate character that's like part of the way, but he's a companion. He's meant to, his story and his journey kind of parallels Mario's as well. Like, I'm going to go save my sister, who's also a hat that was kidnapped by Bowser. So, like, Cappy's, I think, is a great, different example.
But it's a weird... Would you classify Cappy as a pet?
I would. He attacks. He does things. I guess you don't like level him up in the same way that you do with like some of the other ones.
I mean, you don't really have like dominion over him. I mean, you do as a player, you're controlling him and telling him what to do. But like Mario has no ownership of Cappy.
But he's still a companion,
but not a pet.
Yeah, that's a good.
Because to me, a pet would be like the main character would actually could like feed, care for, and control this thing.
Well, and that brings up like your last option too, Epona. It's like. Yeah, it's a pet, but it's also like it's meant to be a mount. It's legitimately meant for one single purpose, which is speed.
So a horse is a pet, and we have horses.
So like, would Dante's motorcycle in Devil May Cry would that be a?
Is it an AI controlled computer that Dante controls with his mind or something?
I mean, you mount it, and you actually in Devil May Cry 5 it looks like it's going to be a weapon.
Well, then it's not a pet because it's not alive.
Yeah,
like a real life pet is a dog or cat, something you would have responsibility for that you control and contain, and you're the owner of it.
I would say that Mario has some like ownership, not ownership, but like responsibility at least over Cappy.
Yeah, really, Cappy's kind of his own dude. You know, he can do what he wants.
But he doesn't do his own thing. He's totally under Mario's control. Like the player is controlling Mario, is controlling Cappy.
It's like a mutual relationship.
All right,
you help me, I help you.
Whatever. All right. Let's talk about relationships. Let's talk about in-game relationships. We'll skip that. We'll talk about that second one there last.
All right.
Yeah, so relationships is another obviously companion example. There's a lot of games that give you the opportunity to a lot of games like in that sort of mid 2000s did this and mid to late 2000s, and then some of those game franchises have just happened to carry on, but you don't see a lot of new game franchises. I don't feel like a lot of new game franchises do a lot of this relationship development stuff. But games like Mass Effect, The Witcher, Fallout,
the God of War would be last year's companion or like relationship.
Well, so a lot of these games have relationship systems where your player actions directly.
Oh, like dialogue choices or
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I was more going for. Yeah, no, you're right. God of War, like the relationship between you and your son would affect it. Earlier God of War franchises had things where if you did the right thing or went the right direction at a right point in time, you could engage in adult relationships with certain people.
But that was more of like a story beat that you could hit
right, exactly. Like, yeah, exactly. Whereas, Mass Effect, Fallout,
where you would actually build a relationship with a specific character based on dialogue choices and quests that you would complete, and but over time you would actually have a relationship with this person.
Yes, a relationship, and you would engage in adult relationships with those people. Sometimes, yes.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I find like that's not a thing that you often. I think that players got kind of bored of that.
Yeah,
because you don't really see it a lot in new games. You don't really see
a lot of indie games doing that now.
There's
really? Like, dad dating simulator, or it's like hilarious.
So there's entire games based around that single mechanic. Whereas it was always like a side game, a mini game. Like Mass Effect isn't a game about relationships. It's just something you can do on the side. Like with the characters that you're meant to bond with. Anyways, yeah.
So I guess The Witcher would be the latest.
The latest, yeah. But again, The Witcher, it's all these like, I mean, Mass Effect Andromeda, I think, had it too. But again, these are franchises that started in that mid to late 2000s and kind of just carried it on because that's what players expected. Whereas you don't see that like a relationship system in a game that has dialogue choices that's newer, like for example, The Witcher. Sorry, not The Witcher. It does in The Witcher. Horizon Zero Dawn. You don't see like Horizon Zero Dawn, which I think is great.
There is dialogue choices, but there's never a long term. You have like allegiances in that game.
Yeah, but you don't.
Which is a type of relationship, but there's no romantic relationship.
Exactly.
That Aloy pursues.
Right. Yeah, and that you as the player kind of drive.
Yeah.
I think it's a breath of fresh air. You don't have it in Breath of the Wild either. I mean, I guess you've never really had it in Zelda games, but. Yeah, I think that you're not really. I haven't really seen it in a new game.
Assassin's Creed Odyssey.
Oh, it does.
You can pursue relationships.
But again, Assassin's Creed,
same-sex ones.
I think Assassin's Creed. I feel like they've had that for a while.
Well, I don't know about Origins, but I know Odyssey's got it. And there was DLC that came out that actually forced the player into a heterosexual relationship.
And they had to patch it out.
They had to patch it because it offended all of the
people
gamers.
who wanted to play who wanted to play a different way. Yeah, identify a different way in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. So that's relationships. You want to talk about the next one?
I was going to say about like duos.
Yeah.
So you have like Jak and Daxter, Ratchet and Clank, Banjo-Kazooie, where you have two primarily like playable characters. But you like, it's weird because Banjo-Kazooie, the secondary character is always just the support role that allows the main character to do some sort of ability.
Right.
And that's about it.
That's kind of, it's kind of a similar relationship to Cappy, whereas, maybe you can include Cappy in this section because, you are partially controlling but you're not like, yeah, but it's more of a partnership. So like, yeah, Ratchet and Clank. I think that's another that's an early 2000s trend. Was there were all these, Ratchet Clank, Banjo-Kazooie, Jack and Daxter. There are all these games that were coming out that have featured these duos.
Yeah.
But you're definitely meant. I mean, in some parts of the game, you actually play as the other. You play as Clank. Like when you're mainly playing as Ratchet, then there's parts where you pick up as Clank and do something. So yeah, cool. There are co-op kinds of companions, and again, hitting on Cappy kind of falls in a lot of those categories and if you play 2-player on the Switch, Mario Odyssey, you can have the second person actually control Cappy's actions, which is cool.
Yeah.
The other one that I had on there was like, couldn't you? I don't know if it was Tingle exactly, but in Wind Waker you could attach the Game Boy Advance, and then do things like drop bombs. For the person who's mainly playing the game, and I think that they rationalized that as it being Tingle. I don't remember exactly. Right. Yeah.
I haven't done that stuff. A Way Out was the most recent game that was completely centered. You had to have a second player. There's no AI controlled 2-player. It is a 2-player game, and it has to be a player-controlled character.
Yep.
Whether it's online or on the couch.
Yeah, so it brings the whole idea of companions literally into the real world. Like, you have to have a physical companion to embody the companion, and you're their companion. So it takes this idea. That kind of makes both of you the companion
to each other
in the game. Yeah,
really cool. Yeah, and totally phenomenal game. I totally recommend it. It changed the way that storytelling is shown over split screen, because every game is split screen, whether you're online or on the couch. And the fact that you had to force another player to do things, and you can't just use an AI or an NPC. You had to communicate. You had to do things outside of the game that affected your in-game choices. So it was just really, really cool and monumental. I loved it.
So what's an example of... so the last one we want to talk about, the last sort of category that we kind of came up with, and there's probably a lot more. There's probably like blends and mixes in between. Like the difference between mounts and pets are very minuscule. Whereas you may listener be like, oh, a mount is a total different thing as a pet. Like, there's all kinds of huge gaps here. But the one we can all agree that we hate are what the gaming community has defined as escort quests or escort missions, or just escorts in general.
It's the bane of companions' existence. It
is companions done wrong, if you you will, and that is some point in many games, especially games designed in the mid to late 90s and the early 2000s. Many games were designed where you'd have one mission where you'd have to, the player, the omnipotent god of your little game, like you had to protect. There was a part of a game where you were forced to protect another character, where their health bar, if they died,
your mission was over.
Your mission was over. You had to restart it from the beginning.
Yep.
There are so many there were so many examples of this. I couldn't even think of like specific ones to write down. I could only think of the good one that I liked.
Nice.
So we'll get to it at the end. But do you have any?
Yeah, Rogue Squadron for N64 has one mission that I never ever to this day have gotten past, because you have to protect a convoy from an onslaught of TIE fighters and everything else from the Empire, and I just can't do it. It's physically impossible for me to be in all places at once, and that convoy gets wrecked because I'm busy chasing down a turret. Oh wait, there's a bomber. Okay, he's dead.
Yeah, there was one in Slenderman too. The second Slenderman, not Slenderman 2, Slenderman: The Arrival. Yeah, and you had to like escort this girl, a little girl, but she was possessed or something. So you had to shine your flashlight on her to calm her down and keep her walking. Because if you took the flashlight off of her, she'd like chase you, go feral and crazy, and attack you.
Sounds terrifying.
Yeah, but if you had the flashlight on for too long, Slenderman himself would catch you. So you had to balance.
Oh my gosh!
So that's the latest one that I know that was like bad. I mean, it was meant to be suspenseful and meant to be scary, but like, it's also an escort quest, which sucks.
Yep. Escort quests go two ways. You either escort something and you have to protect it, or it escorts you. And if it escorts you, it's painstakingly slow.
Right. And it's always...
I don't understand why they can't make these things go faster than the character or as fast as.
Yeah.
And you see this even in Red Dead. It's like you're as a posse working together, and you have to go at their speed. It drives me nuts. Just let me go my speed and make everything else come to me.
So at some point, maybe the late 2000s, maybe early 2010s, game developers started to catch wise to the fact that players didn't actually want to care for someone else's health bar.
Yeah.
That wasn't another player. You know what I mean? Like... So they caught wise to this and they sort of stopped. The first game that I really noticed that included some kind of, like, had a story-wide escort, but didn't have the same mechanics as an escort quest, was BioShock Infinite.
Yeah.
And, again, the whole the whole second half of the story, back half of the story, is you're escorting Elizabeth out of Sanctuary, but Elizabeth takes care of her own darn self. Like, and not only that, she'll like go find you ammo and go like find you health packs and gives you salt and stuff like that.
So
like,
that's a perfect escort quest.
Exactly. So like again, so you get the story kind of beat. You get the sort of like narrative like satisfaction out of like taking care of this companion that and escorting her out, you know what I mean? Like it is a great setup like for tension to be like, yeah, I'm gonna go in and rescue this girl. What sucks is that when they make a mechanic out of it where it's like, oh, but if the girl dies, then you lose. Like so in this game, so for the second whole like back half of BioShock, you had this girl running around with you, and again they kept talking about how you were saving her and all this stuff, but then she would also run around and find you ammo. Yeah. And, like, she didn't have a health bar. She would run around and go hide or whatever and take care of herself. In some cases, she had the ability to, like, rip holes in reality. So she'd, like, open up a fabric hole and, like, there would be a turret there. So that turret would then help you out. So, like, there was all kinds of things she would do for you throughout the game. But I would still categorize her... She's somewhere that blurs that line between, like, I hate to use the word pet in talking about a person, but she kind of blurs the line of pet and escort, but, like, she was set up to be an escort thing, so.
And you know what entire game is an escort quest, and you didn't even know it?
What's that?
God of War.
It is, yep.
Atreus is the perfect companion.
Yep.
You never have to worry about him. He never has, like, he takes damage, and he'll get knocked out, but he never dies. It never makes you fail because he helps
you,
Like, the AI behind him and everything about how they programmed him and the relationship that he built with the main character.
Right, and you can even, like, level up his abilities. Like, you can make him do more things.
Yep. Storytelling-wise, it matters. And then mechanically, it's built into the game as you increase all of his abilities and how you use him in fights and battles and how it's all seamless. Everything is together. It all works together.
Right. He's part of the game. As much as you're controlling Kratos, you're also building this relationship with Atreus.
Yeah.
And
that's how you do companion.
Yeah, it really is. And again, like I would not even really describe Atreus as an escort in the same. Whereas, like I would say Elizabeth was.
Yeah.
Like. And I don't know, I couldn't really put my finger as to why he's not, but I guess it's because he's so incorporated in the story. Like, it's so much part of...
What's the entire mission of the game?
Exactly. It's like to...
Take Atreus to mourn the death of his mother.
Right, yes, but the journey isn't as much as the journey is a physical one, it is also an emotional one.
Oh, yeah, totally,
like, so as much as you say, oh, yeah, what's the point of the game?
Right.
Sure, on the surface, it's go honor Atreus' mother by spreading the ashes on the tallest mountain.
Exactly.
The real point of the game is like for Kratos to truly understand what it is to be a father and to truly understand who his son is as a person. So the journey is really more of this emotional one. So like, but you're right, like on the surface level and actually from a gameplay point of view, he is a companion. So definitely I would agree. It's kind of the
and there was fear of it being a giant escort mission when the game hasn't been out yet. They were like, oh my gosh, is this just going to be like protect him? How much fun is this going to be? It's not. And it was perfect. Flawless.
Game developers have gone just a long way from the escort missions of our youth, where literally they were the hardest things to do because...
Which goes into our next question.
Yeah.
How have companions evolved over time?
Yeah.
And we just kind of answered that, at least with the most modern example.
At least with escorts, for sure, yeah.
The most, like, archaic example I can think of, archaic is probably... console games, I guess. I'll just keep it.
Yeah.
I'll shield this question around console games in the old days. It's usually just some sort of carbon copy of your character. Like in Sonic and Knuckles or Sonic 2, you had Tails. And he was your companion. He would just fly off the level and do whatever. But all he could pretty much do is what Sonic could do with a little tweak. Right. Even prior to that, Mario and Luigi. Like, you couldn't even play them at the same time. They were exactly the same. They were just a different color. So it was just a sprite swap.
Right. So it's either just like something like that, or it was something like we were talking about and describing earlier with Nintendo, like with Navi or whatever. It's like it's just like it borders that line between being just a companion that's there to give you story context, and then maybe they have some functionality outside of that, like marking enemies. So Midna, for the Zelda series, I would say Midna was the first companion that I felt like actually did stuff. That was actually like you are helping me in combat, like because she would, when you were in wolf form, she'd ride you as a wolf, and then like she'd like use her magic to like stun enemies, and then you'd like eat them or whatever. So So I felt, and then she had some other functionality even when you were Big Link. So
I don't know if you can call them companions or not, but like parties in Japanese RPGs have been around for since the first Final Fantasy on Nintendo, and how that's evolved over time. I guess now modern games like Final Fantasy 15 would be a modern example, or any modern JRPG. They're not really that much different, so I wouldn't say that they've evolved over time, but they're in your party. You control them, level them up, gear them up.
Yeah, I'd almost say, I guess you're meant to play as the main companion because you control them outside of battle. But like, I always felt like my party, like I controlled all of them. They were all my character.
Yeah,
like they were all
not really a companion.
Yeah, but I mean, they are from a storytelling point of view. They are the hero's companions.
Yeah.
They are the team, the traveling group, the Fellowship of the Ring, if you will.
Yeah.
I feel like pets have evolved a lot now too. Like whereas pets, I mean, in the early Fallout games, couldn't your dog die? Couldn't Dogmeat die in Fallout 3?
I didn't play Fallout 3.
Yeah, I think Dogmeat could even die in Fallout 3, whereas like they made him more of a like permanent companion in Fallout 4.
Okay.
And Boomer is another good example of like a literal dog, and Boomer is in Far Cry 5.
Oh, okay.
People always talk about who's the better boy, Boomer or Dogmeat.
Nice.
But so like pets, but even like, so I think all the way back to World of Warcraft, and I think about that hunter pet system, and now it's all different, of course. But comparing, in my mind, I'm thinking of hunter pets, and then I'm comparing them to what looks like going to be the coolest like pet mechanic in a game. It is Devil May Cry 5, the new one that's coming out. One of the characters, V, he has a complete different playstyle from Dante or Nero. He actually like summons this giant bird and this giant tiger. And I think he has a third summon too. That's like this big old golem. But like all of your moves, all of your combat is with these giant pets. Like, so all of your combos and stuff, instead of like using a weapon and being crazy stylish, like you literally are just walking around the battlefield commanding these animals. These like, or these demon animals or whatever they are.
Do they have their own health bars or anything like that?
I don't think so. I think they're just part of your move set basically. So like when you hit AABBY or whatever, your like animal does, heavy attack, light attack, but you're just standing there in the back, like walking around with your cane.
Nice.
But then like you'll see him like warp to something and smack him with his cane. So like he still is involved in the combat. But that's what I'm talking about. Like that's the future of like pet combat, like pet companions is like you're controlling them, but you are also not them. Like I could really see them incorporating that kind of like play style with like Pokemon in the future.
That'd be sweet.
Where you're like, you throw your Pokeball, but you're still the Pokemon trainer, but all the moves your Pokemon does, you're still controlling them.
Yeah.
I really want to see how it plays out. It's the most intriguing part of Devil May Cry 5 for me, because I think it could really change the way that like combat companions work in video games. If it does well. Yeah, and like we said, escort quests have just gotten better over time too. So cool. Well, let's talk to our next question. What value do you think video game companions add to the entire experience of any given game?
There's a couple of things I can think of. One of them, mechanically, it allows you to have some sort of secondary function. Like, here's your main character. Here's all the stuff you're going to learn and use and get comfortable with. But here's another one that plays totally different, and you also have to use both. So you're playing two different things. So it adds dynamic. What's the word there? It adds a dynamic to it, so that you're not just doing the same thing the entire time.
Yeah,
and that's just at a very functional, mechanical level. And then there's also the storytelling point of view, where you have the relationship building, the emotions behind it, allows for a million different types of stories to come out of that.
Right. Yeah. No. To your first point, like again, I think of games that have separate classes. It's a really good way mechanically to distinguish like a different class or a different specialization. Someone who's you can have your warrior, your mage, your rogue, and those have been like role-playing game classics since D&D days. What's nice is then you can throw a summoner in the mix, or you can throw a hunter, a tamer, a beastmaster into the mix, where mechanically you can distinguish them by their pets, by their companions. That really defines them. And yeah, to your other part about storytelling, I mean, again, we talked about video game companions, like we even talked about NPCs, like non-player characters who don't really have like a role in the mechanics of the game, but provide story context and provide you a character to kind of latch onto and be like, yeah, I like that guy. Sergeant Johnson's a great example of like a character who never really does anything in the Halo franchise, but I still bonded with him because like of how well the character was performed. And
Alex Vance in Half-Life 2, exact same thing.
Yeah.
Like she pops in, does some stuff for you, moves on, and you establish this relationship because Gordon Freeman, is a mute.
Yeah.
I mean, you kind of project yourself onto him,
Yep.
and then you just interact with the characters in the world.
Yep.
So Alex was monumental in Half-Life 2 in episode 1 and 2, and stuff happens to her, and you're like, no,
Alex, yeah, exactly.
And you feel pretty worried about her, what's going to happen next. And,
right, so companions really do serve to help with immersion. So whether it's, even if it's a character that you partially control, like it really pulls you into the game and it helps you feel like what's at stake. Because if your character, 90% of characters and the way they interact with others. Yeah. So, like, if you have something for a character to interact with, then it goes more to show like what their personality is like. Like, you can even get a sense of what Link's personality is like, and he never utters a single word to anyone in any game. Yeah. Like, so his ability to relate with Navi, his ability to relate with Zelda, like all influence and inform like a character whom otherwise would not say a single word. Yeah. So
that's how companions add to the video game experience.
For sure. Yeah. What do players love about companions, and what do players hate about companions? Obviously, we've hit on this a couple times, but yeah. So what do we as players love about companions?
Companions, we just talked about, the last question was what do they add to games? So they add things to the games. We kind of answered that. So going into what do players hate about companions, the potential bad pitfalls are obtuse. Kind of like, why is this here? This doesn't make any sense. It's like shoved in there. And for either bad storytelling or bad mechanics, escort quests are pretty much the epitome of that. Yeah. But I'm failing to think of any.
Another good example of even one that we've been using as kind of a good example, Navi in Ocarina of Time, as much as I love her, as much as I was sad for Link when she went away, good Lord, that fairy annoyed the crap out of me. Like, hey, listen, has become constantly a meme, has become a trope. An annoying, poorly acted, poorly voiced, poorly designed video game companion can just be an irritant. I know that we have disagreements on Fee.
I love Fee.
I hated Fee. I was like, this is a boring, bland robot. At least Midna had personality. You know what I mean? Like... So, I think that companions can really be, like, if they're not, you have to be really careful about, again, everything down to, like, who's the voice actor. Because if it's a bad voice actor, it's going to drive you crazy.
And then there's, like, the ones that function poorly, and that's just a result of bad AI. Yeah. And Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2, because that's fresh on the brain, fails in this regard. It's like, you need your companions to do items and healing moves at certain specific times, and they just fail completely, and you die because of it. And you're like, oh my gosh, freaking Donald, will you use heal?
Are you familiar with the Babadook meme?
No, what's that?
There's a meme from the movie The Babadook where, like, there's a scene in the movie where the mom turns around to the child, who, again, the child's, like, having a mental breakdown, sees the Babadook, and the mom turns around and goes, why can't you just be normal? And then the child screams. He just goes, bleh!
Oh my.
So the meme is, again, it's just a picture of the mom saying, why can't you just be normal? And then insert whatever you want for the child, shrieking or squealing and again, whatever you want. The one I saw for Kingdom Hearts was the mom turns around, has spiky Sora hair, and goes, why can't you just cast heal, Donald? And Donald goes, Thundaga!
Yep, that's what happens every time. Drives me insane.
Funny. Yeah, I would say, one of the things I think that players like about companions, like I said, is there are certain characters that are distinguished by their ability to summon or tame companions. I think that a lot of players really identify with that. So again, what I like about those, games that have multiple character classes you can choose from, one of the reasons I regularly bring up World of Warcraft or Diablo in this is because you can kind of see people's personalities shine through with what character they primarily choose to play. And so, again, you have some people who like to play the big hulking warrior. I want to be the one with the heavy armor, take all the damage. Then you've got players who are like, I want to be the sneaky, subtle rogue, or I want to be the mage, the powerful, wise wizard. You have a large contingent of people out there who identify themselves as being the person who, I want to, like, have an animal companion that I bond with. Yeah. This is I like to think of myself as the Beastmaster who, or the Summoner is another popular one. I want to be the person who summons these magical beings. I, for one, like my favorite character to play in Final Fantasy X, even if it wasn't my favorite character from a character point of view, my favorite character to play was Yuna because I loved the summons. I loved summoning Bahamut. I loved summoning, was it Yoshimitsu? Like, I loved summoning all of the summons. They were so cool. So I think that a lot of people are attracted and love those kinds of characters specifically because they have companion mechanics of some way or another.
Some other bad mechanics are the ones that get in the way of fire on purpose.
Yeah.
And you have to rescue them. Slippy Toad from Star Fox.
Slippy.
He would always find himself, oh, you gotta rescue me.
Yeah.
And he would like fly in front of enemies and just get wrecked.
Right.
And then you'd fail because you didn't have a chance to.
Yeah.
It's almost as bad as escort missions.
Oh, it's almost, it basically is just an escort mission. Cool. What would you consider some particularly innovative companion mechanics in video games that you've seen over time?
Yeah, and we touched on this a little bit. Starting in the early days of consoles, you had innovation in co-op play. Donkey Kong Country for Super Nintendo allowed you to have two completely independent players at the same screen for a side-scrolling platformer, which is kind of unheard of at the time.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm not well versed in co-op side-scrolling platforming games in the early 90s, but that's one that I can think of as being super early. And then you evolve to like the 3D era where you have like Navi, who is a companion that is the Z targeting, so it is mechanically involved in the game but also in the storytelling aspect of it too. So you have like that marriage, it kind of just this cohesiveness that's there. And then throughout the next generations, I like that, in the Xbox you had Knights of the Old Republic where you started dialogue choices and you can kind of really flesh out the story but give every player their individual experience through the relationships they create, which is unique because you can go a path, I can go a path, and we each have different relationships with different characters, and then each iteration keeps going. So a PS3 era, Xbox 360 had Mass Effect, and we saw kind of the escort quests being evolved and changed, as we talked about with like BioShock Infinite in that era, and what that looks like. And then now in current modern days, it's almost ubiquitous to have a companion that's both mechanically involved in the game entirely and in your story, emotional storytelling perspective, character plot development.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So like we've just seen this progression from frustrating companions that were AI controlled poorly, and I guess it kind of evolves with technology.
Yeah.
Because in the early days, you didn't really have good AI technology.
Right.
Elementary. So if you had another person with you, a co-op one, that's more fun because it's a person. And if you had an NPC that you had to rely on or you had to protect, it was more frustrating because AI technology hasn't really been up to snuff. Mm-hmm. Now we're there. We have it.
Yep.
And so like we've seen this giant trend in evolution in companions.
Yep. Yeah, I don't think I'd have anything to add. I would say my favorite kind of companions that I've seen that I thought were particularly innovative, I would say Elizabeth from BioShock was the one that really blew my mind as like, oh, this is what escort missions of the future are going to be like. And like I said, I think that I guess I can't really say it. I can't say it's innovative for sure yet, but I do think that like the most compelling, I think most people are going to have the most fun with the V. His name is V, which is annoying, but V in Devil May Cry 5, I think is going to be a really compelling character because of the way he plays in comparison to Dante and Nero. So, and that's because of his companions. So, cool. All right. Well, what would you like to see more of video game companions in the future? We always like to end on that kind of question, looking forward. So, what's
the evolution of AI is machine learning, but also how everything is connected on the internet, so you can tie your Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Reddit accounts. Yeah. So, like things I would love to see, and the only social media platform I can think of that tracks both positive and negative feedback is Reddit, because you can downvote and you can upvote. And if you post something, you can be downvoted. So if you are toxic or you offend someone, they can downvote you. Yeah. I would love to see a companion in a video game relate to you based on your morality in the real world on social media.
Interesting.
Wouldn't that be insane?
Where they'd be like super cold to you if you were like a jerk in real life.
Right.
Interesting.
And like actually held a grudge against you, and then you have to like kind of work it out, like work through the conflict with mixture of the advanced AI and machine learning so that it knows your in-game patterns and it mixes that with, like, it could see if you're not the same. Like if you're trying to change, I'm a good hat, a white hat in the game, but I'm a jerk online. It would actually call you out on it and be like, "Oh, you're a hypocrite."
You're a hypocrite. Interesting.
Like,
hypocrite system. Yeah,
it would be amazing. Like I would love to see an in-game companion do that.
Yeah. I don't know. I think I just want to see them keep experimenting with what a companion can be, not just from a storytelling perspective, because that's important too. But I think I want to see, I similarly want to see them continue to experiment more with mechanics and make them more integral. I'd love to see a kind of similar like mind game where like you find out that your companion was controlled by like a person the entire time. Mm-hmm. Like, but it's like not evident in that. Like you summon it.
Journey kind of teased on that.
You did, yeah.
Because you have other companions running around in the world that you didn't know were connected until later when the internet found out, oh, these are real people.
These are people, yeah, something like that. Yeah. But like to like a level, I don't know, where you could pick to play as like a human or an animal, and if you happen to play as an animal, you got paired with a human that was a companion of yours, and then that's actually being controlled by another player. That'd be interesting to see. Some more of that kind of like tricking you into thinking. But I would like to see them continue to evolve. Like even that idea of like, I want AI to be sophisticated enough that like you can have companions in the future that are that like you can have someone like your spouse hop in and control that character, and then like okay, they gotta leave, they gotta bolt. It goes back to being controlled by AI and doesn't really impact your experience. Like imagine if that was the case with A Way Out. Like yeah, you could play it with someone, but you could play it solo.
Right. But
like again, like you would want that experience to be seamless. I think so something like that where it's sophisticated enough to allow you to play solo, but like you're encouraged, but still like robust enough that like it's still fun and compelling for like a physical co-op companion. So to kind of blur that line between co-op and solo play would be really cool.
That would be
I
sweet.
think. Yeah. So, all right, that's our episode. That's our discussion about companions, and again, all about relationships and Valentine's Day. So if you've got a companion in your real life that you care about, then by all means, hold them closer on this day. Tell them you love them. And don't forget to tell your video game companions you love them too. I don't know.
Go, yeah.
I think that I think it's fun to talk about video game companions because again, I think it's a reminder of like, oh yeah, these are the simulations of what, like again, all the game developers are trying to do is just recreate what everyone experiences in real life, whether it's with your dog that you love and care about, or whether it's with your son. Again, you can kind of see that,
or your daughter.
Son or daughter. You can see that developers over time are trying to like make that simulation more profound.
Yep. And your friends
in the games,
and your bosses and coworkers and spouse. I mean, there's so many different relationships.
And your little fairies that like follow you around. Yeah. Like, I mean, I know that my fairy that follows me around is really important to me. So, yeah.
Yeah. Mine's my best friend.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm glad I'm not crazy. The only one who sees fairies floating around.
I see them too. I don't see yours. I see mine.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Hi, Termite's fairy.
You should not be able to see mine.
All right. Yeah. So, yeah, just think about your loved ones. And
if you're single, go do whatever you want to do.
Yeah,
and
you
don't
got
worry
companions. If you're single, you got friends. Your friends are your companions.
Yep.
Like, go. I don't know. Do something special for them today or whatever.
Or not.
Or not. Whatever.
Do you.
Do you. Do your thing.
Yep. There's no pressure for a single person on Valentine's Day.
So, cool. All right. Well, you can tweet your anger at us for our incredibly insensitive comments this evening. Where can they tweet their anger or enjoyment of us? Termite.
You can find us at 80bitpodsmash.com. That's our main landing website that has links to Reddit, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Stitcher, Spotify, TuneIn, or everywhere. Everywhere I just listed, we are 80-bit Podsmash. No hyphens, no uppercases or lowercases, just 80-bit Podsmash. And please go to our subreddit and leave comments, threads there. You can interact with us on Twitter. Just tag us at 80-bit Podsmash.
Yeah, tell us who your favorite video game companions are that we didn't hit on this episode. So.
And the most important thing you can do for us is go to iTunes and leave us a review.
Holla. All right, y'all. Have a good rest of your week and a happy Valentine's Day.
See you next week.